received a booster.
My booster's probably worn off by now. I thought you had mentioned one time that if you had to go back, you were just gonna retire.
Yeah, I considered that too, and may yet. Seem like that word comes up between me and Terry a lot more than ever before. But frankly, when I discovered that she was actually more seriously considering it than even I was pondering it, well, I doubt if we will both retire at the same time. So I'm going to kind of let her figure out her path, and then I'll follow in behind. Let me see. Looks like let me turn that just a little bit. I have a new setup. It'll actually get people a little bit farther away. From my old face. I guess that'll do. I always look better from a distance. I heard someone said they found a new diet. They eat lots of onions and garlic.
Yeah.
It says it really doesn't help you lose any weight, but people stay so far away from you that you look thinner. So that's it. I'm just so OCD.
I try to find some other way to keep people from me besides eating onions and garlic. Yeah.
You know, you can. They try to be measured in the public eating places, but every once in a while you'll eat. We eat with friends or family members and find out that they have a fondness for garlic. Maybe won't be too fond of garlic, perhaps. Or sometimes it's like too many cooks spoil the soup. Kind of the people coming by, and everybody that passes by the soup puts a little dash of salt or pepper in it, whatever they prefer. It's good to see y'all here this morning. It has been lovely weather, and we traveled to Ardmore. We saw not only our dear friends who lost their son, the Youngs, but we saw many of the members of where we served there in Ardmore. I was there 10 years, and so we saw a number of the folks, and went by. I have family members who are buried there at Gatlin Cemetery. It's just over the Alabama-Tennessee line there, so we visited with them and took some photos of the grave. Lacey Weaver had a little baby boy this week. That's our niece. So they have a little girl now and a little boy. I know that I've heard people mention his name, but I can't recall it right now. Combing my brain. I know I've heard it bounced around. I don't think even Terry has seen him or held him, and she's really might be hard to hold him right now. Her brother is a really good grandpa, and her sister-in-law, good grandma. So a lot of that baby, lots of wonder babies don't get all bruised up and being passed around so much. So we've prayed one through. Continue to pray for Jesse and for Victoria. I think Victoria's got a wedding shower coming up soon. Not a wedding shower, baby shower. My goodness. I left the house this morning, and I actually left an hour earlier than I usually do because our power was off here Wednesday night when we got to church, and we found out that a transformer in our area had been knocked out by the storm on Tuesday night. And then it occurred to me this morning when I was trying to load things onto the sanctuary computer that the computer was turned off. They would gone off when the power went off. So I didn't know if it was just completely
Well, they're
burned
still
up.
working on it.
Yeah, I saw electric
Yeah,
people, their trucks parked on the highway, so it may have done quite a bit of damage down through here. But we met here, and there was
Yeah.
only a few of us here for Wednesday night service anyway, and we did not meet. It was cold and dark in here, so. But I got here and I left my phone at home. It's a strange thing, how it's. I think that I've developed a neurosis about it too, and I would have thought I might have been the last. But I almost go into a panic if I discover I'm somewhere and I don't have my phone with me. I think, I start to, a couple of years ago when I had my heart attack, I was actually working in the ditch down at the end of the driveway. And I'm sure I had my phone with me then, but even when I'm pushing the trash can to the road, I say, I better put my phone in my pocket. If I get down to the end of the road or might need help. But I got on, I did start both computers up, got on this one, and I sent Terry an instant message on Facebook. So, you on Facebook? She's doing 1,000 things this morning too, but she said, yes, what do you need? I said, I left my phone there, and it was still charging. I just left it exactly where I'd left it. But told her I can't broadcast without my phone. This much is what we use it to broadcast Sunday school and worship as well. But pray for these two other expectant mothers. Congratulations to the Weavers for their birth. Continue to pray for Shannon Ward. Saw Shannon last Sunday. He and Tiffany brought their kids for the Easter egg hunt. And we had lots of kids here, man. And we hunted inside. They hunted in the sanctuary. It might have seemed to be maybe irreverent. It wasn't very worshipful hunting eggs in the sanctuary. But I grew up thinking that church was not very much fun. Because every time I went to church, I very seldom had fun. So there are limits, I'm sure, and maybe they're farther away than it used to be for me. But these kids had a good time, and I hope that they'll be back. Many of them stay for children's church later on. Today is the 24th. I think Randy Wentz is the only birthday that we have remaining. I think his is the 29th of April. Are y'all's families doing well, and are any of them traveling or vacationing or visiting or?
I'm just gonna say, we might be able to take Rhonda off the prayer list. She's doing pretty good.
Okay, that's good. She had a very serious surgery.
Physically, she's doing pretty good.
Yeah.
So.
Sometimes the things we face that are not medical issues, but our heart and mind goes through a trial. Well, last Sunday, we didn't have Sunday school, and our lesson dealt with the resurrection story from Matthew. So we really haven't missed anything on Thessalonians. Let's pray. Look out. I don't know who may be joining. I did meet, I saw a lot of our friends and other family members yesterday, and they said that they watch often. Could visit us in Sunday school or in worship, so we're always glad to have them. Always keep Betsy Stevenson in your prayers, and she and Ned and Sanders. I don't know. She left before Easter to go up into the Carolinas to visit family, so pray for her. I think I don't know. I can't recall when she said she would return, but she may still be on a pilgrimage, a family journey. And Sanders. I always pray for Donna Serta. Donna had whole truckload of grandchildren with her, I think great-grandchildren, the last Sunday for the Easter egg hunt. They had a big time. But let's pray, and we'll get into 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. Lord, thank you for this day, the beautiful weather. Bless us, calm us, and use us. Speak to our hearts. Let us sense your presence. And Lord, fill us with something to overflowing, that we might be in abundance of what others need, that we have found that we need in us, that they might find in us from you. Lead us in these things, we ask you, Lord Jesus, in your name. Amen. Our lesson author makes a comment here that is worth speaking. He says that in writing to the Thessalonians, they didn't have any really serious problems. Most of the other letters that Paul wrote were to deal with serious issues. Churches were having problems. There was a young person, he's younger than I, saw him yesterday. He's been serving as pastor of a church for 19 years, but he was a young man when I first met him, good Christian man, and he served as our minister of youth. He was serving as our minister of youth when I left there. And then he went into banking, became a bank manager there in Ardmore, and he went to this. He's only served, I think, at one church as pastor, but he's been there 19 years. So he went there shortly after we left his area. Saw him yesterday, and I said, Terry and I both hugged him, and he was coming there to minister to the family and to visit during the memorial service. And I said, your hair's gray. I said, is that from banking or pastoring? And he said, I never had any trouble with people at the bank. I don't think that church people ever try to give the impression that we're better than others. I think it's an assumption an incorrect assumption a lot of people make. Well, they think they're better than us. Well, we don't. And people, all they got to do is visit a church and find out that, you've heard that old saying, perhaps you've even seen it on a sign somewhere. It said, if you ever find a perfect church, don't go there because you'll ruin it. We curiously and out of sincere interest yesterday began to ask, how's this person, what about this person, that person? And we discovered that we had heard that some of our friends there, that they no longer attended church there. But then we found out that they have moved to 4 or 5 other churches since that time. I guess you look around and say, well, we don't like these people anymore, or we don't like the way they do things, or we're unhappy here. So they go to another place. And sometimes they're really just not in tune enough to realize that they have people there too. I guess if you went there and there weren't any people there, it'd be a lot smoother. But I found avoiding people. We have found avoiding people wanting to keep you from getting COVID. We're trying to be very careful, and we limited our contact and so forth, and we still, they say that it's still raging, and it's something, nobody ever thought of or talked about getting rid of the flu. We don't say, well, they're going to cure the flu. Well, no, cure the flu. Flu's with us, and then they tell us there's the avian or the bird flu and the Hong Kong flu. There's just different strains of it and flavors. But it has made its way into our world, and it'll always be there. You'll never eradicate it completely. So what we need to do, and the very last words of 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, Paul has just done his very best to describe how things are going to happen when Christ returns. And even though it seems to be very clear and straightforward, there's still so much room for other questions or confusion. It's just one of those things that the more we think about it and scratch our head about it, doesn't mean that we make progress in coming to greater understanding. I suspect when great cataclysmic or apocalyptic things happen to us in the future, I suspect that one of the things that I'll probably say is I didn't think it was going to be this way, or I was wrong about this, or this is different than I imagined. That's the way things mostly are. We go to places all the time and say, well, this is different than the postcard, or have you ever seen a hamburger on television and you wanted that hamburger at the hamburger place? Yeah, they have it. You unwrap it and say, oh, this is all flat and mashed, and it kind of doesn't look very. They're always tall and they glisten and glow. Then I saw an advertiser. They were spraying a hamburger to make it shine. Make it look like it was juicy. Like, oh man! And then sometimes it's just plastic. Or they, instead of mayonnaise, they put big dollops of Elmer's glue on there because it won't spoil and it looks whiter. And you think, oh man! And so I get that. I really want to know. Kentucky Fried Chicken now has a chicken sandwich. Seems like a natural thing to do. And since, with all the criticism Chick-fil-A gets about everything, every time you drive by Chick-fil-A, the line is a mile long. And then there are people driving by, and you know what they say every time they drive by Chick-fil-A on Sunday? Sure wish we could stop in at Chick-fil-A, but they're not open on Sunday. So now the Colonel has a chicken sandwich. You got a bun, and then the chicken is just like coming out everywhere. It's just a big old piece of. I think, my goodness. We went out to eat last week, and my brother Danny got a cheeseburger, and they brought it, and it was that tall. And I think, how are you going to eat that? He says, I think I'm going to have to take it, dismantle it first, eat it in pieces. It's not anything that you could, you can't open your mouth and bite it. And then when I want to get a hamburger, I say, let's take a lot of the stuff off. And I went to Freddy's new hamburger place over by Walmart and looked at the menu, and they didn't have anything that was just one single beef patty. Everything was 2 or 3 or 4 patties. So it's all about the meat. Where's the beef? Well, I know it's at Freddy's. But not as advertised. So with all that, I think we're still, I want to get that chicken sandwich and see if it really is. I'm going to prepare for disappointment. When the Lord comes back, I imagine, however it's happening, I'll say, this is a little different than I thought it would be. The very last words he shares in chapter 4 is, wherefore, comfort you one another with these words. Someone was telling them that, Jesus is coming back. But when he comes back, you got to be alive. If you're dead, you're dead. They kind of had the idea that, when you're dead, you're dead. And when you're dead, you're gone. And you don't exist anymore. I mean, you're not a ghost. You're not a spirit. You're not there's no afterlife. And so this, you need to take care of yourself. And Paul's primary thrust in his speaking about Jesus' return, he said, no, he's going to be bringing them with him. And we say, well, that's odd. How can I even understand? So the people who've died, even though we buried their body or whatever, he's bringing them with him when he comes. He said, we'll see them again. And he says, I hope that's comforting to you. Comfort each other with this. When someone dies, and he spends must have been pretty widespread, because in 1 Corinthians 15 he says, no. He says, Jesus rose from the dead. He says, we're going to rise from the dead. It's very sketchy. Yesterday at Mr. Young's memorial service, he has a young daughter. And I didn't notice it during the service, but they had mentioned during his obituary that he had a dog that evidently was very special to him, named Pistol. And Terry said she saw someone at the cemetery out standing underneath a shade tree, had a dog on a leash up there. And I did stay. I have some kinfolk that are buried there at Gatlin. There's lots of people buried there now. But I knew that my aunt and uncle were buried at the end of the cemetery. Well, evidently there are a lot of people who have been buried there since I was there last, or paying much attention, because there are hundreds and hundreds. I went all the way to the end and couldn't find them. I had to walk all the way back this way. Finally found them. And I hope I took some pictures. I can find it better and easier next time. But anyway, I noticed that when we were standing at the grave then, that looking right down that road, that we could see exactly where Donnie had just been buried. And everybody was gone except his daughter, 25-year-old little girl. First time I met her yesterday. And she and the dog was down there. She was sitting on the ground next to the grave, and the dog was running around smelling, sniffing. And so they were just, all the other members of the family and friends had gone. And she stayed there by herself. Very touching. Comfort one another with these words. We're going to see each other again. We're going to be together. We dealt with Sunday before last whether we would recognize each other. It wouldn't, I believe we're going to look young and healthy. So there's going to be some room for failing to recognize, but it will be comforting. It can only be comforting if we see people there and it is, you know, if everybody in heaven is a total stranger to us, if we don't recognize anybody, then it wouldn't be very comforting. As a matter of fact, I remember my family moved when I was in 5th grade, and I became the new boy in our class. I was a new kid at school. It's the most awful feeling I've ever been through as a child. Come in,
Hey!
hello, Miss Princess, how are you? Saw you jumping into sponge balls. Hi.
Tell hi.
Happy birthday.
Say hi.
That's Miss Joanne, that's Miss Barbara.
Say hi. Give me 5.
Give me 5. You do
Give me
that?
5.
I'm not going to get you. She actually crawled in the van with me last Sunday. I was sitting there and she reached out her hand, got in there, and just as soon as she got still, she went back to me. Got your leg. Got your leg.
She don't care nothing about Mimi, you can tell that.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Not at all. Of
Bye-bye.
course, Mimi
Tell
don't
her
care.
bye.
Mimi don't care nothing about her either.
Can you tell her bye?
Bye-bye.
Hey.
Say bye.
Bye.
Go on, sugar. Mwah.
Hey.
Mwah. Can you go mwah?
Bye-bye.
Say bye-bye.
I didn't know anybody. Tell you what, I was 5th grade, so I'm maybe 10, 11 years old. And I remember sitting there, didn't know anybody, afraid of everybody, didn't know what to say, already very shy and bashful. So I turned around in my seat. We were just kind of waiting for the first day to begin. We were all sitting in our seats. Turned around and looked at the little boy behind me. He was a little freckle-faced boy with kind of sandy, golden brown hair, and had glasses on. He looked at me. I just looked at him. I turned around in my seat, and he raised his hand and made an obscene gesture right in my face. And I'm thinking, So I turned back around. I've relived that over and over. I'm now 66 years old. And I think when I was 10 years old, the first little kid, the kid that, well, I guess we became friends later on. At least, we got along. I don't even remember his name. Seemed like it was Barry. But Barry raised his hand and just, didn't say a word. Just made an ugly sign in my face. And I'm pretty sure right now, if I could go back and do that again, I'd just punch him in the nose. That's what I'd do. And, my first day of school, they'd send me home, and I'd say, yeah, they sent me home. Why did you? Well, somebody made an ugly sign in my face. I punched him in the nose. And my dad would say, oh, good, that's good. My mom would say, why did you do that? So if we get to heaven, if we don't know anybody, I think as Peter, James, and John, they knew Moses and Elijah. I think when you see Moses, you're going to say, you know, he looks just like Charlton Heston. I recognize him anywhere. Moses and Elijah, and you know, I hear so many songs saying, "We'll know Jesus. We'll see him because we'll know him because we see him as he is."
I think that we will know everybody.
I think so too. I think no one will be a stranger.
Nobody will be a stranger.
That's a very good thing.
That's what I.
In
That's
1
the way
Corinthians
I see
13, Paul says, "We will know as we are known," and I do think we'll actually know. I'm starting a sermon series this morning that is kind of lead to that I believe that what God has been doing throughout human history is introducing to us to better and better and better things. And we talked about how there won't be any marrying and giving in marriage, but marriage has been very kind to me and Terry, and it's been something that, you know, we could anticipate. You know, if I pass away, I assume that she would miss me, and if she goes, then I'll miss her. And I was thinking, you know, if I was in heaven, I've been with Terry, and, you know, I'm certainly, I know she'll be there, but it'll be and you kind of think, you know, how could something be closer? How could we be more intimate? How could it be something that's more meaningful than being someone's father or mother or husband or wife? But I do believe that God is to bring us to better, 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 and better. And so that's very astute, Joanne. I do believe that. I believe that we'll know and recognize people that we never met in our life. We'll know historical figures. We'll know biblical characters. We'll say, hey, there's Jeremiah. And there'll be something that is added to us, a part of God's improvement, further improvement of us, that we will have greater knowledge than we did in this life, and it may be a part of But let's get on into chapter 5, verse 1. It says, "But of the times and seasons, brothers, you have no need that I write unto you." Now he's still talking about the return of Christ. "For you yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night." You know, thieves come and they want to sneak around.
In other words, you're unexpected.
Yeah, and but you don't know when it's going to happen. He said, "We don't know. We don't." He says, I'm not going to tell you when he's coming. "And when they shall say, peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape." He says, you know, it comes, you know, a woman, it's a part of our lives. It's a part of culture. It's part of even our entertainment. We've been watching a show, you know, and all of a sudden a woman will look up and she says, "I think the baby's coming," you know, and, you know, she knew she's having a baby, and she knew about when the date was, but that's why it's saying right here, he says that we know Jesus is coming back, but then a woman kind of says, "Hey, I think I'm having the baby, let's go to the hospital." So that's what he says right here. "But you, brothers, are not in darkness, that day should overtake you as a thief." You know, Jesus is going to come similarly to a thief in the night. But, you know, there are certain precautions that we take around our house so that if a thief comes to our house at night, he can't get in. Or if he gets in, we'll hear him. Or, you know, we have weapons at our disposal. We have a plan of, we have already kind of talked about or thought about, and we've made plans. We heard someone reached out to us and said that someone was breaking into people's homes and cars in our neighborhood. We heard this about 2 months ago. So, ever since then, and I generally haven't made a habit of this, but I've left our back porch light on 24 hours a day. It just stays on all the time now. It's just part of, he's going to talk here about the light and the darkness. We have a motion detection light too, but I don't keep that on. That might even wake up the neighbors. It really just kind of floods our whole property. We can turn that on, and even a rabbit or a squirrel comes onto our property, it lights up. That's too much. But
I've got that under my light.
Mother had one of those.
They can, if they're walking down the street, it don't come on. But if they start up my driveway, that
Right.
light'll come on.
Perfect. And so that's what he means right here. He says, we're not going to be overtaken by a thief. We won't be surprised. And God's people, though we don't know what day he's coming, we won't be completely caught off guard. We won't be, he says, we won't be in darkness. He says, you are the children of light and the children of the day. We are not of the night, nor of darkness. Therefore, let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober. Of course, he's speaking figuratively. He says he's not saying don't ever go to sleep. He says, concerning this matter of being vigilant and watchful, he says, he says the person who needs to be watchful and sober is actually the watchman. And we know that watchmen work in shifts. They work in, we don't put one person out there and that's his job and he does that 24 hours a day. So he's talking about you watch. You have the first watch, you have the second watch, you have the third watch, and we always, and that's really one of the greatest advantages of the church, is that we can watch for each other. We can collectively be prepared. For they that sleep in the night and they that be drunken are drunken in the night. He says, a lot of foolishness and a lot of evil goes on in the darkness. But let us, who are of the day, be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love, and for a helmet the hope of salvation. For God hath not appointed us to wrath. I was skimming through radio channels this week, and I heard, pardon if this sounds politically incorrect, but it seemed to me to be very obvious that he was a black preacher. I couldn't see what color his skin was. It seems to me, it always seemed to me, that there's a great deal more about being a black person than just the color of your skin. That's why I always kind of, I have great respect for Martin Luther King Jr., but he says, I hope one day that we'll all, I have a dream that we'll be judged by the content of our heart, not by the color of our skin. Well, racism is about a lot more than just the melanin that's in a person's pigmentation. But this preacher was preaching on, and he was preaching about the armor of God. And Paul uses this allusion in Ephesians as well. He's talking about the breastplate of righteousness, helmet of salvation, the belt of truth, the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God, the feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. And he says, this black minister says, you know what? He says, a lot of you Christians, you're discouraged and you're depressed and you're losing battles. He says, because you're out there fighting naked. And I thought, didn't have his armor on, didn't have his weapons with him. He's fighting naked. And he said, that's why you're getting all cut up and beat up and bruised. He said, you need to get dressed and get your armor on before you go out there and try to tackle life. For God hath not appointed us to wrath, but to obtain salvation by our Lord Jesus Christ. Many times in the Gospel of John, the Gospel writer records words that indicate that God gave us to Jesus. God. Here's John Bain. He's yours. I'm giving, he talks about, I'm the shepherd. A shepherd got sheep in two ways. When he didn't have any sheep at all, he's a young boy, and he's going to become a shepherd like his father, like his daddy. He doesn't have any sheep, though. He wouldn't go buy a sheep. That's not, in Jesus' day, people didn't just say, I'm going to start me a sheep farm, I'm going to go buy me some. No. His daddy would say, I want to give you some sheep. They'll be you start out with these. Here's some. My daddy was going to raise some chickens one time, and he bought 3 roosters, and my brother had to tell him, said, Daddy, I don't think you're going to have many eggs. Just them 3 roosters. You're going to have to go get some hens. Well, Jesus said, my Father gave them to me. And right here, it's always, God is the initiator of our salvation. He's the creator of our salvation. He's the author of our salvation. He says, God hath not appointed us to wrath, but unto salvation. God appointed you. God appointed me. Yes, we're involved, and there are decisions and choices. But he says he has not left this to chance, or just simply mere possibility. You have always been a certainty in the heart and mind of God. God knows more than you and I. Things look like a flip of a coin to you and I. Everything life looks like drawing straws or rock, paper, and scissors to me and you. But nothing looks like that to God, and he's the one, he's in charge of our salvation. Who died for us that whether we wake or sleep, we should live together with him. Now, he's already said, be vigilant, stay awake, be sober. But then he said, even when Jesus came out to the garden, he found his disciples were asleep. He said, watch and pray that you enter not into. But they were still his disciples even when they fell asleep. Whether we wake or sleep, we should live together with him. Wherefore comfort yourselves together and edify one another, even also as you do. Here again, he closes with this, with his very same kind of sentiment that he began. Comfort yourselves. And then he used the word edify. I don't know when I learned that you could call a house or a building an edifice. It's an edifice. I may have learned the word edify first. Edify one another, he says. And that means build each other up. Comfort each other and build each other up. One of the worst things that can happen in a church is if your friends here at church criticize you. And listen, me or you are at varying times going to be worthy of criticism. I mean, we're always going to do things wrong. If someone wants to sit down and describe things about me or you that we're doing incorrectly or that we're wrong about, it's not very hard to find. And since it's so easy, maybe we ought to just skip it. Don't just avoid it. Don't worry about it. I think there are times people when they are in error and they don't know it. And maybe they need someone who is loving and someone who's caring, bring it to their attention. And I'm grateful for people who have shown me where I was wrong and where I needed to improve or where I needed to get better. There are two words that Jesus used. It is the words anakrino and katakrino. Krino is judge, to judge someone. Anakrino means to judge them up. In other words, you need to improve your serve. This is a way you get better. Katakrino means just condemn someone. That's the way it's most often translated. To judge them down. It's usually not very helpful. It just means, I'm done with you. You're useless. You have no value. There's no room for improvement. You're a bad person, and I'm just putting a negative stamp on you. Anakrino, katakrino. And what he's talking about here is learn to build each other up. Learn to build each other up. And so always be on the lookout for someone that you can help, someone you can improve. What can I do to help you? What can I do to strengthen you? What can I do to add to you? And he says, Paul encouraged them, comfort one another. And the word comfort, we think of soothing someone, but it really means to stand beside. To stand beside them. All right? Do you need a bottle of water? I have this might be helpful after you get over that. That's what I've been using. It may just be the pollen of the day. Let's carry on. I see here that music is going in the sanctuary. thank y'all for being here, and thank you for letting me share with you.